Hello, welcome to my class. I am Pamela Jasmine. Today I am going to teach a poem, A Considerable Speck, written by Robert Frost. It is about a minute particle, a piece of dust. When the poet was writing a manuscript on a white sheet of paper, he found a piece of dust. At first he thought that it was a non-living thing. Then slowly he realized that it was a living thing or a living being. It is trying to escape, or it is trying to save its own life. And the poet finds intelligence even in that small piece of dust or that speck. And he respects it, and he tries to save its life. So that's about this poem. Let's discuss the poem. A speck that would have been beneath my sight, on any but a paper sheet so white, set off across what I had written there. So a speck means a small spot or a piece of dust. A speck that would have been beneath my sight. He would not have seen that. He was writing on a white piece of paper, and he would not have been noticed that speck on any but a paper sheet so white. But the paper was so white, so this speck was dark in color or black in color, so he was able to notice it. Set off across what I had written there. Then this speck was moving, running across what he had written. And I had idly poised my pen in air to stop it with a period of ink. Then he had stopped writing, and he put a full stop, and he placed the pen above, and he poised my pen in air. He stopped and he just paused, and he was watching to stop it with a period, with a full stop. When something strange about it made me think that this was no dust speck by my breathing blonde, but unmistakably a living mite. When he paused, then only he realized that it was not a speck of dirt, but it was a living thing. When something strange about it made me think. So he felt something strange about the piece of dust. This was no dust speck by my breathing blown. It was not blown by his breath. It was not a piece of dust blown by his breath, but unmistakably a living mite. He discovered that it was a living mite. And with inclinations it could call its own, it paused us with suspicion of my pen, and then came racing widely on again to where my manuscript was not yet dry. So it has feelings. With feelings, it could call its own. We can call it its own feelings, the feelings of the speck. And it paused with suspicion of my pen. Then the speck, then this dot paused or waited. It was afraid of the pen of the author, and then came racing widely on again, and it started moving. It tried to escape from the pen, and it started to try to escape or save its life. And then came racing widely on again. It started racing. It started running away from the pen to where my manuscript was not yet dry, and it started moving on the space where the manuscript was written. The ink was still not dried, and it started moving. Then paused again, and either drank or smelt. Then it paused, and it drank the ink because it was wet. So the dust smelt and smelt the ink, and with loathing for again it turned to fly. But it did not like the smell of the ink. It hated the smell of the ink, and it started to fly. It started to move. Plainly with an intelligence I dealt. then he could find intelligence in that speck. Even though it is a microscopic form, the poet could find intelligence in that speck. It seemed too tiny to have room for feet, yet must have had a set of them complete to express how much it didn't want to die. It is too small to have feet, but still it managed. It managed to run away from the pen of the author to save its life. So there is intelligence in it. It ran with terror and with cunning crept. It faltered, I could see it hesitate. Then in the middle of the open sheet, cower down in desperation to accept whatever I accorded it of fate. So it ran with terror. It was frightened. It ran with, fright because it wanted to save its life. It did not want to die. Every creature, every individual is like that. Nobody wants to die. Same way, this small speck does not want to die. So it is running for its life. And with the cunning crept, it was running cleverly to save itself. It faltered. I could see it hesitate. Finally it stumbled, and finally it was uncertain, or it hesitated what to do. It was a bit confused. Then in the middle of the open sheet, cowered down in desperation to accept whatever I accorded it of fate. Then finally, in the middle of the paper, in the center of the paper, or on the open sheet, it crouched down, surrendered its life to its own fate. And so what the author is about to do, he is surrendering because the poet moves his pen without or carelessly. That's the end of this speck's life. So it tried its level best to save its life, but finally surrendered to fate. I have none of the tender than thou, collectivistic regimenting love, with which the modern world is being swept. But this poor microscopic item now, since it was nothing I knew evil of, I let it lie there till I hope it slept. So the poet respects the intelligence of this mite, or this dirt, speck. Whatever accorded, I have none of the tender than thou, collectivistic regimenting love. So now the poet is speaking about the communism, that time that a collectivistic regiment is going on. So there was no respect for individuals. What the government decides, it happens. So he was speaking about that, with which the modern world is being swept. The modern world is like that. There is no value for individualistic thought or individuals, but the group. So the government is considering like that. There is no value for the individuals. So communism is spreading around. So the poet is against it. The poet was speaking about that. But this poor microscopic item now, since it was nothing I knew evil of, I let it lie there till I hope it slept. But the poet considers this speck. The poet respects the intelligence of this speck, and he did not find any evil in this small speck. So the poet allows it to live, the poet did not hurt the speck. Since it was nothing I knew evil of, I let it lie there till I hope it slept. The poet did not want to disturb. So the poet allowed the speck to sleep on the piece of paper. He stopped writing, and he let the creature live there and let it sleep there. I have a mind myself and recognize mind when I meet with it in any guise. The poet has a mind of his own. So he respects his own individuality. He respects his own mind. So wherever he sees a mind or an individual, he respects. That's what he says. I have a mind myself and recognize mind when I meet with it any guise. So in any form, if he sees a mind, he recognize, he realize, and he respects. No one can know how glad I am to find on any sheet the least display of mind. So no one can understand his happiness. He is very glad to see an individual in any form, and on any sheet the least display of mind, wherever it is. If it is a display of mind, he respects it. So he writes. When he writes, he displays his mind. So wherever he sees the display of mind, he respects. That's all about the poem. Title of the poem. Is the title appropriate? It is a very suitable title. The title itself is unique and it is an oxymoron. Oxymoron is a figure of speech in which two contrasting ideas comprises. It comprises two contrasting ideas. So considerable means significant or having importance. Speck, we know, a piece of dust. It does not have any importance. So these two words, contrasting ideas, join together to form this title. In the beginning of the poem, the poet sees this speck and thinks that it is only a piece of dust. But after observing it, he understands that it has individuality, it has intelligence, and it has its own mind. This tiny microscopic creature is trying to save its own life. It does not want to die like all the living beings. So the poet respects it, respects its intelligence, and he does not want to disturb it. The poet, so the poem is, the title of the poem is appropriate. In the beginning, it was insignificant, but later, when it was observed, it became very significant. Like all the human beings and other creatures, this speck also have a mind. So the poet respects, the poet realizes that as he has a mind and he is expressing that mind through the writings, this speck is also having a mind. So he respects this speck of dust, and that's why this title of this poem is appropriate. Theme of the poem. The central theme of the poem, a considerable speck, is the importance of a human mind, the ability to think, and intelligence. So at first the poet did not realize that the speck has life. He thought that it was a speck of dirt moving because of his breath. But when he realized that it has life and it was trying to save its life, the poet started respecting it. And he realized that it has its own mind. So then he did not kill it, or he did not disturb it. So the poet respects display of mind anywhere. So any form of writing, he respects any form of writing or any form of expression of mind. Here he could see the expression of mind of this microscopic creature. Still he respects. So that is the central theme of this poem. Rhyme scheme of the poem. The first 6 lines are in the form of a heroic couplet. The rhyme scheme is A, A, B, B, C, C. Then from 7 to 27, that is in the form of a sonnet. So an octet and a sestet. So the rhyme scheme is to express the movement of the dust. And the last 6 line is again in the form of a heroic couplet using A, A, B, B, C, C. That's all about the poem. If you like this poem or if you like this video, please like, share and subscribe. Thank you for watching. God bless.